The Summer of the Mariposas, Chapter 2. The Birds. Bird, little birdie, enchant us with your pretty song. We can cross the border at dawn. Pretend we're going on vacation with our father, Juanita suggested. We walk our bikes out of the woods and mounted them, ready to ride the rest of the way. Once we're through the checkpoint, we can drive straight to El Sacrificio. Excuse me, and how are we going to do that? Are you going to call the fairy godmother and ask her to turn a watermelon into a chariot? I asked, because I don't know about you, but I left my magical beans in the other shorts. Juanita gave me an evil eye. Catlet, I'm not stupid, so you can stop acting that way. Velia patted her shirt pockets with a flattened hand. It's not like we're broke. We have money now. You took his money? Juanita asked, shocked. I can't believe you stole from the dead man. It doesn't belong to us. We can't just take it, Peta said, looking scared. We can if it's for a good cause, Delia said. We're not using it to buy ourselves stuff. It's not like we're really taking a vacation. We're using it to take him home. I thought of the drowned man again. We left him sitting by the riverbank, drying under the mulberry tree, the tiny mariposas clinging to his mouth and nostrils, as if trying to resuscitate him. Well, technically, we will be using it on ourselves because he's dead, Juanita pointed out. Okay, I said, looking up in the darkening sky in frustration. So how are we going to get there? Do you even know where you're going? We can take Papa's old car. There's an old map of Kalila in the glove box, Juanita suggested. She hit my arm with the back of her hand and then grabbed the handlebars of her bike as she pedaled off. That car's a lemon, Velia yelled at her. She smacked her lips in disgust and then pedaled after Juanita. It's worse than a lemon, her twins elaborated. Shaking our head, Delia and I pushed off and rode our bikes at full speed, trying to catch up to Juanita and Velia. I had to work extra hard because Peta was riding behind me, her arms wrapped tightly around my shoulder and waist, like a heavy backpack. That car's a pile of junk, Juanita, Delia continued. Not even a dung beetle would want to push that old ball of caca around, much less hold us to it. Mama would have sold it a long time ago. Bought us some new school clothes or something, Velia added, slowing down to talk to us. The girls were right, of course, about everything. The car was still running, so it was sellable. Since Mama didn't know how to drive, preferring to take the bus everywhere, she went in Eagle Pass. She made me start it at least once a week and drive it around the block to keep the tires from flattening. But my Hermenites were mistaken if they thought I was going to drive them around in that death trap. It needed an oil change, and the brakes squeaked, and those were just the things I knew to watch out for. God only knew what else might be wrong with it. See, you can't even agree on how to get us there, I said, looking at Juanita for acknowledgement. Well, we're going. You can join us like a good big sister. Cinco Hermanas, together forever. Or you can break our motto and stay behind like a coward. I turned around, gritting my teeth. That's insane, I growled and pedaled on, wondering how to fix things without any real solution coming to mind. Villa and Dia rode around Juanita and flanked me. Listen, if you don't take us, Juanita is willing to drive, Villa said without looking at me as she slowed down to match my unhurried pace. Don't be ridiculous, I said. Juanita wouldn't know how to find a gas pedal if it had a rattle on its tail. At least I have a driving permit. Let's just get home for now. The right thing to do will come to us. We let the conversation die off and pedaled our bikes back to the house in silence. When we got there, the sun was a luminous orange globe, touching the horizon. Mama had already left for work. She was a waitress at Mr. Gee's all-night cafe off Main Street on the edge of town. So she was already gone by 8 o'clock and didn't come back until the next morning. Soon after we got home from the river, the girls had another one of their yakking sessions in the twins' room, and as a result, they were running around the house packing for the trip to Mexico. I didn't intervene or stop them from packing. They were exhilarated by the idea of taking a long, adventurous journey, but I knew very well how this was going to turn out. They weren't going anywhere. They just didn't know it yet. I ignored them and went to the kitchen to fix them welfare burgers for dinner. We called them welfare burgers because we used regular sliced bread instead of buns. Mama said buns were more expensive and they were the same exact thing. So she just didn't see the point in wasting money on them. As for me, I wanted a sandwich. The long, hot summer day had made me hungry for something cold. So I took out the bologna and cheese because there was no mayo. I ate my sandwich dry as cardboard as I stood over the kitchen sink and looked out the window at the darkening skies. When I looked up at the kitchen clock on the wall by the back door, I realized it was much later than I thought. So I went to talk to the girls. I poked my head in the twins' room, humoring my sister as they sorted through the pile of unfolded laundry in the middle of the full-size bed. Dinner's on the table. You need to eat to keep your strength up for the long drive. Do you think we'll need sweaters? Velia asked her twin, pulling an old tattered sweater out of the cluttered closet. She tucked it under her chin and displayed it over her flat chest. It's the middle of Canciera, I said, stepping all the way into the room. Why would you need a sweater during the hottest part of the summer? It gets cold in the desert, Delia said. She sat cross-legged on their dimplet dresser, smugged as a cat. We're going to the desert? Peter asked, but I want to wear this dress. She had put it on her best church dress, a baby blue, short-sleeved silk dress she had for a long time. She twirled around and watched the full skirt swirl around her like an open umbrella. Then she stopped, looked at herself in the mirror, and tugged at the snug waistband. Clearly, Peta wanted to impress Albula. She always had to try so much harder than the twins to feel pretty. That dress doesn't even fit you anymore. Delia uncrossed her legs and jumped off the dresser. She poked Peta's baby fat and pulled on the dress collar, silk ribbon bow. Too many tamales. You've got to stop eating so much fajita pita. Wear something else. You look like a chili enchilada in that. I don't care. It's my favorite dress, and I'm wearing it, Peta whined as she slapped Delia's hand away. And don't call me that. I took Peta's round face in the hand and squeezed her cheeks. You don't have to worry. You're not going to any desert. Calita is a dessert, isn't it? It's next to chimichanga, and chimichanga's a dessert. Delia asked no one in particular. Think so? Delia frowned her eyebrows. I rolled my eyes. Of course not. Calabaza, you're such knuckleheads sometimes, I said, looking around and talking to all of them at once. Okay, let's get this straight. First of all, only the western part of Kahula is desert. El Sacafata isn't, even though it's just as hot as Eagle Pass in the summer. But we're not going there anyways. So just go in there and eat your dinner. Then go to bed. It's almost 8. Too late to worry about the body tonight. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Tomorrow, Juanita complained as I turned around and started out of the bedroom. What do you mean tomorrow? But we have to go back tonight, Delia whined, to prep him. We'll talk about it tomorrow, I insisted. Then I turned around and left them there, whining and fighting again. I went to my room and entertained myself by reading a few pages of The Great Gatsby. It was on my summer reading list. And so far, I hadn't been able to get past the 3rd chapter. My mind was on our other matter, like how to settle the girls into bed without causing a riot. I played again with the idea of calling customs to tell them about the body, but there was something else none of us had considered. Not even Juanita, with her presumed giftedness, had realized that once our swimming hole was discovered, we'd never been able to go back there. At the very least, the Border Patrol would keep an eye on that particular area of the river in case anyone else tried to sneak through that gap in the fence. We were lucky they hadn't noticed us swimming there already. They might even close it off, making us leave our swimming days behind. By the time the girls bursted into my room, frying backpacks and old bucket purses busting at the seams, I was all ready to go. I stood up, picked up my own backpack, hit it high up on my shoulder, and faced them. I'm going to Marcella's house. I think she's having a sleepover tonight. What? When did you come up? When did that come up? You didn't mention it before. Juanita, continuously demanding tons, was most frantic part of her. What about the body? We said we'd take him back. I told you, we're not going to Mexico, I said deceivingly. Mama will kill us. Besides, she's already mad. I called to tell her I won't be here tonight to take care of you. She was so upset, she threatened to cut her hours short and come home. I think she's already working on it. It was a total lie. But they needed a reality check, and they wouldn't call Mama to confirm my story. Besides, while I made dinner, I developed a plan to have Mama be home that night, if not in body, then in spirit. So you all better be in bed by the time she gets here, I continued. You know how she gets when she's in a bad mood. This isn't fair, Juanita screamed, her arms rigid and her face reddened with rage. She was actually crying. Juanita never cried. Her stubbornness usually led to yelling or bullying. It was unnerving. I don't think I'd ever seen her cry since she found out Santa Claus wasn't real. Suddenly, I felt like a wicked stepmother in Snow White. Juanita, probably embarrassed at her tears, stormed out of the room. She didn't go very far, though. I could hear her mumbling under her breath in the hallway. Delia threw her backpack on the floor and kicked it to the corner of the room. You're an ignorant, goody-goody, wannabe saint. Once better, she declared. And a sissy face, Delia added spitefully. The remarks didn't bother me. I was used to the twins' stylized brand of cursing by now. They'd been doing it all summer, pretending they were old enough or even brave enough to curse like sailors, but never quite getting the word out. I was more worried about Juanita, who was glaring at me from the front door, would do something drastic, like storm out of the house and go back to the river. I bet Marcella kicked her big fat behind out, and she has to sneak back in here like a sewer rat, Delia said to Valia, flopping down next to the twin on the bed. They both looked at me like they were about to spit in my face, eyes glistening with wrath and frustration. Juanita came back into the room, looking more like herself again. "You're a lousy sister," she yelled. "Enough." I finally raised my voice the way Mama does when she's done putting up with them. "Now go to bed before I call Mama back and tell her what's really going on. And you, stop cursing or I'll wash your mouth out with Clorox." To my surprise, the twins flounced off the bed. All four of my sisters marched out and down the hall to the kitchen without another word. I went out the front door, locked it, and put the spare key in the deadbolt in my pocket. There was no other set of keys in the house to that door, so if they wanted to open it again, they'd have to wait until Mama came home or jump out a window. The thought had barely entered my mind when I heard the unmistakable sound of a window being slid open. I turned around to look at the darkened house. The only light was in Peta's room, which faced the front. "You can't back out of this. We outvoted you 4-1, Juanita screamed, her body halfway out of the window. I lifted my hand in the air and my index finger extended. "Rule number 1 of the Code of the Concita Hermantas. The eldest sister has final word. Always. Good night." I left the yard, closing the gate behind me noisily so they could hear me leaving, even in the moonless night. Then I walked resolutely up the sidewalk to Bronza Street. The thought of them escaping through a window made me cringe. I froze momentarily before I reached the corner, but then I realized they wouldn't do that. They might be wild, but they depend on me for everything. If I wasn't in on it, it usually didn't fly. That was the beauty of following the code of the 5 sisters. We really did do everything together. I walked around the corner, past the Aguilar's house, and cut across 2 empty lots where I got the left leg of my jeans tangled up in some barbell weeds. I had to stop to pull the brambles off, and then I turned up Zama Street towards Mr. G's. Peering in through the glass door, I saw Mama was standing at the counter, slicing pie with a heavy knife. Her black hair was twisted up in a haphazard knot, and the dark circles under her eyes were more pronounced tonight. She'd been working so hard lately. Guilt stabbed at me, but I pushed it away, even though I knew it would make Mama mad. I needed to talk to her. As if she had ESP, Mama froze in mid-slice and looked up, making immediate eye contact with me. The sight of me standing there with my nose pressed against the glass made Mama clench her mouth, and she cut through the crust of the pie like she wanted to kill it. She finished plating the slice of pie before she left the counter. I opened the door and started to go inside, but she hurried to meet me. Taking my arms in a vice-like grip, she turned me around and marched me back outside. "What are you doing here?" She messaged her forehead with her fingertips, rubbing at the worry lines between her eyebrows as if she wanted to erase it. "It's important," I started, noticing the deep-set lines on her ring finger where her wedding band used to be. It had been months since she stopped wearing it, but apparently wearing it over the years after gaining a lot of weight, had left her finger scarred. Mama used to be skinny before she got married, and then she got really fat. I mean, really fat, like 300 pounds fat. But she lost it all in the 11 months since Papa left. So she was back to being thin again, not skinny thin like she used to be when she was a girl, the way the twins are now, but definitely thinner. So thin, in fact, she didn't look like our mama anymore. I wasn't worried about her anymore because she wasn't as sad as she used to be, and she was eating again. She looked more like me and Juanita now, strong and voluptuous, but tired from working so hard. We talked about this, Odelia. Mama warned me in Spanish, unless it's emergency, you can't come here. One more incident like the last one, and I'm out of here. Is that what you want? To get me fired? Last time I was here, I tried to get Peta to come back home. She made such a scene, bursting into the cafe to whine to Mama that the girls were picking on her again. No, but the girls, I started again. I don't want to hear it, Odelia, Mama warned, her upper lip getting thinner and a tighter in a spoke. I've told you before, if nobody's dying and the house isn't on fire, it's not an emergency. How could I convince her without giving anything away? But they're being ridiculous, I continued, blinking nervously, now because we had caught the attention of Mr. Moore, the restaurant manager. Mama tried to control her temper by closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. I mean it, Ardelia. Take care of your sisters. I can't be in two places at once. This wasn't working. I was only bothering Mama, and she couldn't help me anyways. I wanted to scream at Mama and tell her that everything wasn't going to be okay. I couldn't take care of it, but then Mr. Moore bursted through the doors, almost knocking us both down. Is there a problem? Mr. Moore asked, standing halfway out of the restaurant and holding the door open. His bald pink head was covered in sweat. It glistened like a Christmas ornament under the fluorescent light spilling out of the cafe. I felt like taking a cleaning rag from the apron pocket and wiping it down for him, but that wouldn't have been nice, no matter how good it would have made me feel to do it. Oh no, Ardelia just came over to pick up some money for eggs, Mama assured her boss, quickly switching to English. Reaching into the front pocket of her apron, she made a show of pulling out a couple of dollars and handing them to me. Mr. Moore shook his head. And this is more important than keeping your job? No, it's not, Mr. Ardelia. Ardelia knows better. It won't happen again, Mama whispered. Normally, Mama doesn't let people mistreat her. She knows how to defend herself. But she has to act like a meek and mild because Mr. Moore has a big, fat, sloppy eating hog, and she needs this job. After all, it wasn't like she had many career options without a high school diploma. She spoke English well enough, despite the fact that she only went as far as third grade in Mexico, which was all her parents had money for, and she hadn't come to the States until she met and married Papa when she was just 17 years old. Up to now, he'd always taken care of her. When she first started working, the only jobs she qualified for were janitor's, maid, and waitress. After a few trial runs, she decided she hated the other two, so she was doing her best to keep this job. She couldn't stand Mr. Moore, but she got along with the customers, and they tipped her very well. Then let's get back to work, shall we? Mr. Moore raised his eyebrows. When we didn't move, he cleared his throat, with his lips clamped shut and his eyes bulging out of the sockets. He looked like a toad on steroids, but Mama knew he was about to explode, so she nudged me aside. I'll be in a minute, Mama said, taking me by the shoulder and turning me around so I was facing the parking lot. I'm sorry. I whispered as soon as Mr. Moore was inside the restaurant again. I didn't mean to. Whatever it is, deal with her, Delia. Mama insisted. You are the eldest. It's your responsibility to take care of your Hamatis. I can't do it all. Now go home before I lose my job. Because I know how going to see Mama would turn out, I left Mr. G's without feeling a bit of remorse over not telling her what was going on. At least I tried. There was nothing more I could do when she wouldn't even give me the time of day. I couldn't help but think she wouldn't get in so much trouble at work if she and I had cell phones. Money was just too tight, and calling the restaurant would only get her in more trouble. Mr. Moore didn't approve of personal phone calls, but then a cell phone would probably be yet another reason for Mr. Moore to accuse Mama of neglecting her work. Last week I saw him chew out Mama's younger coworker for texting instead of finding something useful to do with her break, like tidying up the break room. Feeling less than thrilled at having to once again take care of it, I walked back down Seymour Street the same way I'd walk up. The truth is, I needed to stall for a while if my plan was going to work tonight. So instead of turning right at Braxo, I just kept going until I hit our old elementary school. The campus fence wasn't locked, so I was able to walk right up to the classrooms. I dusted the powdery corpse of half of the dozen dead butterflies off a cement bench and lay down on the quad under the moonlight for a while, contemplating my sisters and our rebellions. We were taking it too far, this rowdiness. Maybe I need to tone down my part in it, become more responsible, listen to Mama, wash some dishes or do some laundry for a change. At that exact moment, a star shot across the sky. Its sparkling light faded into the horizon as it died away, unsung, unwept. Immediately following behind, another star fell from the sky. It went down in the same direction. Then another one, and another one, and another. On and on they all went, one right after the other, all five descending in the same direction. Something told me I should hurry up and make a wish before the magical moment passed me by. So I closed my eyes and thought about one thing that I truly wanted. Papa. Yes, if I could have anything, I'd have Papa come back to our lives and take care of us. I wanted him to stop touring, get a real job, and be home every day like he used to be when we were young. I wanted Mama to stop working and worrying all the time. It's not like I want her to tuck us in at night or sing us a lullaby in Spanish like she used to. We're too old for that now. No, I just want to be a family again. With that longing in my heart, I closed my eyes and actually fell asleep right there on the school bench. When I woke up, I lifted my face of the thrift store watch, and I couldn't believe how long I had napped. It was 10 past midnight. 2 hours had just flown by. I jumped up and trotted past the empty lot, but instead of going straight down the street towards home, I took a detour. I turned into the alley behind our house, hiding behind the Alfrenzas family's dumpster. I opened my backpack. Hastily, I took one of Mama's blue-dressed uniforms out and slid it over my clothes. I unzipped my jeans and slipped out of them, shedding them like a snakeskin and stuffing them into the backpack. Then I changed into an old pair of Mama's work shoes and twisted my hair around and pinned it up into a half French twist, an easy, well-rehearsed style technique I learned from Mama, who always wore her hair that way. I completed the outfit by tying the apron around my waist. By the time I got home, the lights were out. I could see that in Juanita's bedroom, a nightlight was shining, but when I jiggled the latch and the chain-link fence It went out. I kept my head down as I walked into the yard, just as Mama would. I struggled with the doorknob, pretending to look in Mama's apron pocket for the keys. I finally opened the door. I didn't turn on any lights or make any noise. Like Mama, I chose to walk in darkness. Quickly and quietly, I slipped into her bedroom. I didn't undress, but instead lay in Mama's bed fully clothed, with my back to the door. Soon I covered up with her blanket and pretended to snore, congratulating myself the whole time I was Benelega, the queen of ruse. Not even 10 minutes went by before the bedroom door clicked open, and I heard someone enter Mama's bedroom. But I didn't stir. Instead, I continued to fake snore. Mama? Peter said quietly and sweetly, reaching the bed and touching my shoulder. She tried to shake me a bit, whining softly under her breath, but I snored again, loudly this time, like Mama does when she's really tired. I heard another noise, more like a rap, then another, a knock, then 2, 3, 4 more. I shifted in bed and halfway turned in the mirror. I saw the dark silhouette of at least 3 of my sisters locked in a muted struggle. In the darkness, I could hear their muffled grunts and then the intake of sharp, deep breaths before they knocked each other to the floor, taking Mama's ironing board with them. I clicked the table lamp on and saw Vilya, Delia, and Peter all tangled up on the floor. What's going on? I yelled. Peter wailed. They're trying to kill me. They took a sharp breath, struggling to free herself. We are not, Delia and Vilya exclaimed, even as they held her down. They had their hands over her nose and mouth. I couldn't breathe, Peter whined, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand when they finally freed her. Juanita entered the room and looked from the girls on the floor to me on the bed. What are you doing in Mama's clothes? Stop biting me, you little traitor, Vilya spat out. She was so mad, she kicked Peter's leg. Ow! Peter scooted away from them and stood up. I wasn't going to tell. I just wanted to give Mama a goodbye hug. Sure you were. Kizuma, Delia scolded. You're the biggest gossip there ever was. She turned around and gave me a dirty look. Don't kick her. I let Peter sit on the bed with me. You should be ashamed of yourselves, treating her like that. She's a little girl and not a spy on Mission Impossible. And you're not Cinderella. So why the stupid getup? Juanita threw back at me. I undid the knot in Mama's apron, slipped it off, and laid it on the bed beside me. Then I pulled the pins out of my hair and let my hair loose. I felt good. She let my scalp breathe again. Never mind me, I said. Didn't I tell you all to go to bed? You were bluffing, weren't you? Juanita's dark brown eyes narrowed in disgust. There was no sleepover, and you never called Mama. It was all a trick to stall us. Delia got up and dusted her rump. Well, it didn't work. We're going anyways, she announced. That's what this little snitch was doing in here. She was going to tell Mama we're leaving, Velia said, kicking Peter again before she stood up. I said, don't kick her, I warned Velia. Then, looking at Juanita, I said, oh, yeah, well, how are you going to get there? I started to unzip Mama's uniform down the back. I felt ridiculous sitting there dressed up like a waitress, even as I tried to sound like the voice of Raisin. Delia went to the door and blocked it, her feet apart and arms crossed like some kind of monster. If you won't drive us there, Juanita will. She's been watching you. She knows how to do it. She has the keys, Delia said as she went to stand next to her twin. You don't know what you're doing, I said, pulling my clothes out of the backpack. I peeled the waitress uniform off, put on my t-shirt, and pulled on my jean shorts back on quickly. Well, you're going anyways, Velia concluded. They walked out of the room, leaving me and Peta to stare at each other. I heard the commotion in the living room, the girls arguing again, but the front door was locked, and I had the only key. They're not going anywhere, I assured Peta. No sooner had I said that I heard the front door slam shut. What the heck? I walked out into the hall just in time to hear my father's old Chevy Nova sputter loudly to life. I pulled off Mama's frumpy shoes and pushed on my own sneakers. Dang it! There was obviously another set of keys in the house and the vehicle. I had no idea where they found them, but they had, and now my sisters were trying to drive away in a compromised vehicle without a clue as to how to handle it. Ah, you cussed. Peta followed me down the hall from the living room window. I saw Juanita, Villa, and Delia jump into the car as I ran out on the porch. Hey, get out of the car. What do you think you're doing? I hollered. Juanita put her arms out the window and waved my old canvas bag at me, taunting me from the inside of the car, daring me to stay behind. Then she revved the engine like a professional race driver and stared me down. Wait for me, Peta called, leaving my side and running out after them. She jumped into the back seat. Seeing that I wasn't leaving the porch, Juanita shrugged, put the car in reverse, and backed out of the driveway. I left the corner of the Norv's rear bumper, clipped the chain link post, taking the gate with it, and knocking down a good part of the fence. Juanita didn't even look back at the fence damage as she put the car in drive. I ran into the darkened street as Juanita peeled out. Come back here, I yelled, but they were driving so fast I had to cut across the neighbor's lawn and through their backyards to keep up with them. Pumping my arms and legs as fast as I could, I followed the car all the way down to the corner. My breathing was coming in ragged gasps, and I could barely hear the knocking engine of Papa's old car from the pulse pounding against my eardrums. Okay, I screamed. Okay, I'm coming with you. Stop, stop. They paused long enough to let me jump into the front seat, while Velia made room for me by quickly crawling into the back with Delia and Peta. Can you at least let me drive? I asked. You can drive us to Mexico, but not before that, Juanita said, grasping the wheel resolutely. Then turn on the lights, I demanded as we made our way down Main Street in the dark. If they didn't want to get stopped by the police, we should at least look like we knew that much about driving. The idea made me think that perhaps I shouldn't have pointed that out to her. Getting the cops' attention would definitely bring their harebrained trip to Mexico to a stall, but the police involvement was more of a last resort. There had to be a better way. Use the wipers, I continued. Get those dead butterflies off the windshield so we can at least see where we're going. It wasn't at all how I planned our night to end, but I figured all hope wasn't lost. It was just easier to let my sisters think they'd won. However, the instant I buckled up, I promised myself I'd surrender the body when we get to the international bridge, no matter what.